And on the environmental protection laws, Murray Watt's determined to get it through this week. He's released now, he's going to join me in about an hour on the program, but he's released 11 amendments that he's open to, 6 to the Greens, 5 to the Coalition, accommodating some of their requests. Where does he want to land, do you think? Doing a deal with the Greens or with the Coalition?
Well, he wants to get this thing done, Kieran, after 5 years of trying across both major political parties in government. It's, as Graham Samuel said, our current federal environment laws are, well, not his words, but a rock around the neck of our economy. And notwithstanding the damage it's doing to our economy, it's not sufficiently protecting the environment. So we need these changes. Now, I'm never for compromising on principle, but the art of politics is one of compromise on the detail. And I think Murray Watt's been very accommodating of both the Coalition and the Greens. I don't know what Murray's preference is, but certainly my preference is a deal with the Coalition because it overcomes that sovereign risk problem where you've got continuity across major political parties if there's ever a change of government. And I think we'll get more sensible policy in terms of the health of our economy if the deal is done with the Coalition rather than the Greens, because the Greens are extreme on these issues. We saw them vote against the climate change policy of the Rudd government because, as always, they allowed the perfect to get in the way of the possible. Both the Greens and the Coalition should do the deal with Murray, get this thing done this year. There is nothing we will know next year about the bill and its impact on both the environment and the economy. Nothing we know next year that we don't already know this year.
One of the amendments looks like it's going to be stripping out the fast tracking under the environmental laws of any coal and gas projects. That, at a time when we need as much supply as possible, I wonder how that's going to go down with business, because up to this point, the business community wanted a few amendments. They wanted the Coalition to drive a lot of the change. They yet to commit. This is going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds over the next couple of days, given if they do a deal with the Greens and they remove fast tracking for, say, gas projects, where you would imagine a government would want to have that capacity to be able to fast track a supply that everyone recognises, well, except the Greens, but everyone else recognises is going to be an important transition source.
Yes, that's right, Kieran. I couldn't agree more. We are a country that derives enormous export income from the export of both coal and gas. We still rely on both in our domestic economy in a number of ways. And I'd much prefer that fossil fuels remain in the fast tracking. I mean, if something's in the national interest, it's in the national interest, as assessed by the minister. Doesn't matter whether it's a wind turbine or a gas project. That's perfectly rational and logical. But if we end up with a better law that makes it easier than the ridiculous system we've had up until now for these projects to get approval, then they could probably live with being left out of the special approvals process just to get a better arrangement than they currently have. So let's just get this thing done.
Yes, and on the Susan Lee suggestion before you go that Chris Bowen is a part-time energy minister, will the Prime Minister back him in on these COP negotiations? Do you think that he's certainly shown no signs of wavering in terms of his support for his colleague?
Yeah, look, I think he will back Chris Bowen in. Look, you can argue with Chris Bowen and the government on their energy policies. That's fine. You're entitled to do that. But you can't deny Chris Bowen is both hardworking and highly intelligent. And I'd rather have an Australian in charge of an Australian from a resources-rich country heading the climate change negotiations than someone from certain European nations who seem to be determined to kill their economies. And in an overreach on climate change. So let's see how it goes. These are uncharted waters, but it's a great, sort of privilege for Australia to be heading those negotiations, regardless of which Australian is doing it. And it might just prove to be a good thing. Let's wait and see.
Joel Fitzgibbon, great to get your thoughts as always. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.